some of you have seen over the last 1 week was storytelling. Simple stories told in a compelling manner. Because that's what cinema is. They're told with words, moving image, and sound. Something that we teach at the Jindal School of Journalism and Communication. Sitting next to me, Pablo Bartholomew, who is going to deliver the first Satyajit Ray Memorial Lecture. And he's a proud high school dropout, a self-taught photographer. His first job was in the Bombay film industry, and he worked with various directors and actors. But after Attenborough's Gandhi, he went into advertising and corporate work. Not exactly after that, but slowly. But his photojournalism, for which he is so well known, that kind of was between 83 to 2004 roughly, has featured in every major international publication. And he won the World Press Photo Award thrice, not just once or twice. His first award comes from his Morphine Addict series in 1975, at the cusp of the hippie and junkie movements. He won the other two from his iconic Bhopal gas tragedy picture. Many of you must be recognizing him through that picture of an unknown child being buried. His association, however, with the Nagas through pictures is one of the longest. He spent 500 days across 3 states photographing 15 Naga tribes. The trigger, perhaps, was his father, who was of Burmese origin, who came walking from Burma through the Lido Road during the Second World War. His mother was half Punjabi and Bengali, and he is a dyed-in-wool Delhiite. Since 2000, he has been excavating his 5-decade-old photographic archive, evolving exhibitions like Outside In, A Tale of 3 Cities, Bombay, Chronicles of a Past Life, and the Calcutta Diaries. He has held over 30 international solo exhibitions. His work is part of prominent collections worldwide. And the list goes on. He has been bestowed with a Padma Shri and various other international awards. And he continues to photograph the people and places he visits. But why is he delivering the Satyajit Ray Memorial Lecture? We will wait for him to tell that story through his pictures. But before that, I would request our registrar, Professor Patnaik, to say a few words and felicitate our guest speaker.
Thank you so much, Kishalai. And first of all, a warm welcome to Pablo. It's indeed our great pleasure and honor to have you with us this evening. I also welcome all our faculty members from the School of Journalism and Communication and all other schools of the university, and students from the School of Journalism and Communication from the Film and New Media program that we started this year, and students belonging to the university. It's indeed a proud moment to all of us because here we have an opportunity to screen the films made by Mr. Satyajit Ray, a legendary filmmaker. I don't think I do have either the qualification or the expertise to speak about Ray's films or even share some reflections on his films. But like an avid film watcher, all I can say is that you will find something to notice, observe, and understand from his style of filmmaking, and even to raise some basic yet fundamental questions to know why he is considered to be a legend and an all-time great, despite being the fact that These days we talk about pan-India films and all, but those were the days. Pablo will tell you more. His films were made in Bengali, a regional language. But nonetheless, his reputation is transnational, and his work transcended borders. So perhaps there is something in that, and we will get to hear from Pablo more on that. But over a cup of tea just a short while ago, Pablo was sharing that what made him a great filmmaker is his expertise over the craft that goes into making of films, whether it is writing a story, developing a screenplay, sound, design. I'm not talking about direction. You all know that he's a great film director. And then the second important key word is humanism, as used by Pablo. And I will leave it to your figment of imagination what humanism could be, what it ought to be, and why we should have a sense of empathy to be more humanistic to our fellow human beings, to the nature, to all the happenings and developments surrounding us, and probably there is an innate observer, a poet, a writer, an author, a filmmaker, whatever vocation you might term it, in us, because at the end of the day, my understanding is that the kind of themes that he might have picked up during his time and during his days of filmmaking, and that's what has left a great legacy. So the most important lesson from his films is that the way he made those films, the craft of filmmaking, and his sense of sort of sensitivity and empathy to the developments around him, and that's what probably made him a master craftsperson, a great storyteller, a great writer, a great painter, and above all, a great filmmaker. And we can go on to add many more encomia to his illustrious career. We are grateful to the School of Journalism and Communication, led by Professor Kishalai Bhattacharya, for having commemorated the particular film festival this week, thanks to the support that we have received from the National Film Development Corporation and the National Film Archives for having given us an opportunity under the auspices of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, but also the stupendous leadership of Kishalai, to have celebrated and continuing to celebrate the centenary of Ray. And there cannot be a better opportunity than to have the first Satyajit Ray Memorial Lecture to be delivered by none other than Pablo, an accomplished photographer. I would only request you to know more about him by reading about his profile and even his contributions. And what's more, it's like I'm sitting next to Ray himself in a vicarious manner because he worked with the great man, and he can tell us more about not only his craft, but even what went into the thinking of Ray in making films or even conceptualizing certain themes to be translating them into films. So, listening to Pablo and even watching films is a great learning experience, not only to the students of film and new media program, but to everyone in a way who would like to be a social observer to know what the nuances are. And we are so grateful that Pablo has taken out time to be here to deliver the talk and also to share his experiences. And we are so privileged to have you, Pablo, with us. And on this particular note, and without further ado, we would request you to proceed with the program. But before that, we would like to honor your presence here, and we wish to felicitate you on behalf of the university and the Vice Chancellor, who could not be present here today due to certain other pre-commitments outside. He also sends his best wishes and greetings to you, Pablo. Thank you so much.
It's nice to see a full hall, but well, fullish, but I see a lot of empty seats. Why are you people sitting at the back? Don't you want to come up further? It's easier, nicer, you're more into the screen. I know those are, in a movie, that's the more expensive seats, but you're not in a movie hall, and these would be the better seats. And whoever comes late then sits at the back. That's great, thank you.
Maybe they wanted to run away.
Hmm?
Maybe they wanted to run away.
Oh, well, no, you can leave anytime. That's no compulsion that you have to stay. You may find it boring. Can I have the lights off? Thank you all for coming. What I'm trying to do here is sort of structure this presentation as a way a movie is made and sort of walk you through the various things that happened. Also the way I experienced it as a stills photographer. Now you have to understand the stills photographer is the most dispensable person on a film set. And he's usually a hindrance because the position of the photographer on set is left of camera. So if the camera is here, you're right next to the camera taking photos, and you can be a hindrance to the assistants, the camera movement. If the director doesn't like you, then it's bad news. I have had a few bad situations, but otherwise it's been pretty good. And I started working in the Bombay film industry in the 70s purely because I had no education. And there were two areas that I could have gone into. The first being politics, which was something that I didn't want to get into. And you don't need a degree or a qualification. Or the film industry, which seemed a much better bet. And I had friends who were already actors, directors, producers, so the migration was easy, knocking on their doors, getting into the film studios, working for them. And at that time, the stills photographer, all he did was produce work for lobby stills. If you've been into the old cinemas, they would have these showcases where scenes from the movie would be put up. And then, of course, for the posters and publicity material. So here we go. To start on a film, or any, whether it's a documentary or feature, you need to do research. And Ray was an amazing researcher. He had multiple crafts. If you look at this is his study come library, where also he met people. In one corner, there used to be a piano, then it was moved out into the main house. It was attached to the house, but as you came up this huge colonial wooden staircase, there would be the entrance to the house. On the right of it was the door that you knocked on, and Ray would personally open it if you had an appointment and he was expecting you, and he would sit you down, and it was decorum. You would drink tea and eat 2 Marie biscuits. So, you know, those were just part of the whole palaver. And in those days, as you can see, he wore these long kurtas and pajamas. And during shoots, he would bathe at least 3 times a day. That was on location. On set, of course, that wasn't possible. This is again another view of him in his living room. This is outside his house on Bishop Lefroy Road. He stayed on the first floor, a little further behind where the car is, there was a stairway that took you up. And what he's holding in his hand is his red khata, which is like his notebook, ledger book, drawing book. And in that, every shot breakup was drawn by him with extensive notes, shot angles, where he would cut, where the music, if there was a music overlay, all those notes would be in this kata, including the dialogue. And that's how he used this, like a graphic novel, to be able to structure and work on set, which you'll see later. So the journey starts in 76. We go on a recce to Lucknow. I don't know if any of you are here, any of you in the audience are from Lucknow. So you would be familiar with this landscape. I forget where this is, but I think it's one of the palaces. Okay, thank you. So, again, visiting all these structures, my job was to document a lot of this. A lot of it went to the production company, where there was architectural details, close-ups of costumes, whatever we could find in the museum, in other people's homes. There was the house of Mahmudabad, and the Nawab or the Raja of Mahmudabad sort of owns half of Lucknow. But that ownership doesn't mean anything, because let's say Hazratganj, which is like the Connaught Place of Lucknow, is owned by him. But there are so many tenants in Hazratganj which pay him 40 rupees to 400 rupees that it's a nightmare to, administrate. And he won it back because his father went to Pakistan, the Raja of Mahmudabad, and he had to go to court with the government of India and was able to win his property back because it was taken over as enemy property. But that's another story. But he was very helpful in opening doors and showing us what old Lucknow, these are some of the Havelis, the monument. Again, what is this monument? This is, I think, around Kesar Bagh or something like that. I'm not exactly sure. This is Chowk, which is the hub of the old city, around which the legendary Galoti kebab walas all housed and things like that. So we went around just looking at architectural details. What was interesting is these the bricks, these thin bricks are all over UP. I think they're called the mutiny bricks for some reason. Or again, these sort of, the awadh, the symbol is the fish. And then, of course, Birju Maharaj, who's very much part of the film, the Kathak, great Kathak maestro, we visit him, his house. He pulls out, shows us around, and in his home he pulls out various artifacts, photographs that go back ancestrally to his father, grandfather. So, all of this I'm photographing whatever I can, apart from what you see, the people. And I'm sorry, a lot of this material has just sat around. I've just pulled it out, haven't had the time even to restore it, but I don't even know if this file is worth restoring because they're really small. These were small scans made as I was archiving my work. So at some point, if I ever do a book, then these will all be rescanned on better high-resolution scanners, cleaned up, and then printed. Again, Ray in the Havelis, the old homes, on location. This man in the white shirt who borrowed my camera is one of the legendary art directors. I mean, he was with Ray from the beginning, Bansi Chandragupta. And again, Bansi was part of the team. The man behind him is Ray's son, Chandeep. And with Bansi, I had a very interesting and fun relationship, and we would fool around, joke around, and you'll see more of that later on. Then comes the studio and the set. The script is written, in this case, because it was in Urdu, the script was written by two other people in conjunction, in consultation with Ray. And then Bansi Chandragupta was in charge of creating the sets and the decor. And a lot of it is all plaster of Paris stuff being recreated. There's Bansi sort of trying to fine-tune the smallest details. Workers taking off the plaster casts. And you can see here against the studio wall all these various set pieces. There's Bansi with his assistant art director. Talking to the workers. Ray inspecting in the art department, which was all within the studio compound. And the film was made in Indrapuri Studios, which is in Tollygunge. That's why you have Bollywood and then you have Tollywood, because Tollygunge is where there are 2 or 3 studios, Indrapuri being the biggest and still survives. I remember going back to it about 10 years ago. Ray and Bansi inspecting. That's the set coming up. And there were several sets. I think there were 2 studios in which different sets were put up, and this is the main Darbar Hall of Wajid Ali Shah. I don't know how many of you will see the film, but I would urge all of you to see the film because it's unique, because it's 1 in color. It's a Ray's second color film. 2, that it's in Hindustani or Urdu, which is much more accessible to most of you, unlike Bengali and then reading subtitles. So, and it has actors and actresses like Sanjeev Kumar, Saeed Jaffrey, Shabana Azmi. So, there is this whole other layer of Bollywood meeting Tollywood. Sets a desk of some sort being transported. And there's Bansi very proudly sitting on the set that he's built. Now is the time that things really happen. Gear is being moved into the studio, the crane, dollies, trolleys, fans, and we shot also in the middle of summer, so those non-air conditioned studios become like ovens. Of course, there were times we shot in winter and it was much more pleasant. But these are the huge fans that would go on the moment the shot was cut. This is a light boy who controlled the lights. And you can see, I mean, you know, this is equipment from another era. It's surprising that there weren't more short circuits and fires, but thank God, everything worked. The set is ready. Ray is there on his own, looking, thinking how to. And one of the first sequences that was shot was with Sajeev Kumar and Saeed Jaffrey as the chess players. I'm not going to get into the story because that's something that you need to discover, and it's a beautiful short story by Premchand, who's again from the heartland of India, UP. Setting up a shot. The cameraman, his lighting cameraman, Ray actually operated the camera also. His lighting cameraman helped him set up the shots and the lighting, and so pretty much, you know, everything was under his control. Somebody was asking me, that's the second assistant. There's on the left. Earlier on, we were having a conversation. This giant 6 feet plus human being was quite a frightening figure with his booming deep voice and his glowering looks. But there were times that he was like a child, and this is one of the moments where he would joke, laugh, and become somebody else. That's not a shot from the film, but it's during rehearsal. And this was an era where everybody smoked. I don't know if there should be a warning sign below, but as you will see, everybody, including Mr. Ray, lit up. So as you can see, the two protagonists of the film are really well-to-do, rich folk. And I leave it there, and their luxury or their pastime is to play chess, no matter what happens around them. So all the detail that you see, whether it's in the textile, whether it's in the armament which is on the wall, the work of the walls, which is of course plaster of Paris, but in a real sense would be stone. Everything has been researched, documented, and then reproduced to the lamps. Another light moment, Sanjeev Kumar and Ray sharing a joke. That's the actor David, who plays a small cameo role as he comes to meet one of the nobles. This was one of the song sequences of the two songs with dance. That's a love sequence or a seduction sequence between Shabana and her husband. And you can see the couple, an unhappy Shabana with her husband. Oops, I'm sorry. This is an interesting scene between Farida Jalal. Who is the actor? Farooq? Yeah. And there's infidelity, and that's as far as I'll go. This is the court, and the courtiers. Sorry, these are low-res scans, and but you can see the jewelry, the dress, everything in its minutest detail, even the smallest of the smallest of characters who may have just be passing 5-10 seconds is dressed immaculately and to the period. That's Jalal Saab. That's Jalal Aga's father, the comedian, and he had a small role here. And that's him taking 40 winks. I was always amazed with actors throughout in the various films as they could so speedily sleep anywhere. Oops, sorry about that. One of the main scenes the film opens with is this ras, which is performed by Wajid Ali Shah, the Nawab of Awadh, and he gets into a role of playing Krishna. And it's kind of interesting that you had this kind of synergy where a Shia ruler would dress in the form of Krishna and play a ras. And that's the rehearsal. So this is Birju Maharaj's Kathak entourage that's going to perform with Amjad. And Amjad Khan is the Nawab of Awadh, which is, I don't know how many of you have seen Sholay, but you have this Gabbar Singh, this terrible character, and here he's playing this sort of rather soft, effeminate ruler. And Birju Maharaj and Ray working out the dance sequences. So you have this very burly Pathan and this very petite woman going to perform. And that is Amjad or Wajid Ali Shah as in the role of Krishna. Then there was a courtier scene, and there were sort of young model-like women who were called to audition. This is during the audition. And I found a cousin. The girl in the center is a cousin of mine. And there they are. Ray is looking over. This is the concubine sequence. That's going back to the Farooq and Farida Jalal sequence. Another light moment. And the lady on the right is, we used to address her as Bahodi, but that's his wife, Bijoya, a first cousin, I think, or a cousin that he married of sort of childhood love. And the photographer is Ray's photographer. That's Tom Alter, who's playing one of the Angrez roles, the Britisher. That's Ray directing, Tom Alter. There would be a full formal regalia, but this is rehearsal, so it's only the shirt. That's with Barry John, who was again another Englishman recast in the film. And then that's Richard Attenborough, or Sir Richard Attenborough. And when I worked on Gandhi, the term for him was Tricky Dicky, because there were lots of funny things. There was a huge mutiny between the Indian crew and the British crew, and his role was a bit dodgy, trying to be diplomatic, so we all called him Tricky Dicky. That's Barry John. And it's a wrap for the day. Ray leaves with his wife. And every day, his wife would come on set, devoted, always there, ready to help. So, a little bit behind the scenes. I mean, you've seen everything which happens on set and things like that. There was a time we even celebrated Ray's birthday, and as affectionately he was known as Manik. So Manik Da, birthday. And the cake was made like a chess board because, you know, the film was about chess. And you saw scenes. You saw Shabana, a close-up of her. She's actually lying on top of Sanjeev Kumar. It doesn't show in that shot. But off the set, they were also sort of getting kind of intimate, ... Amjad was for me, he was a great discovery. You can see that there's a big gash in the middle of his chest. He had a heart operation. But he was such a sweet human being. Very different to the persona. Sanjeev was much more charming in the sense that he knew who he was as this golden boy of the film industry. And that's Shama Zaidi, who did the script, worked on the costume, was a sort of overall consultant of the period. And she's animatedly explaining something to Shabana in the green room. That's Sanjeev Kumar in his dressing room. And there's, if you look at the little bust there on top, there's a small wig which goes onto his head. And you can see me with my camera meter and whatever in the mirror. That's Amjad relaxing. And Victor Banerjee, who was the Prime Minister, nearly naked. I tried to get him, sort of catch him as he was coming out of the bathroom, but I wasn't quite successful. But he was still pretty cheerful and didn't shoo me out in anger. And that's Amjad getting dressed. You can see the slit down the middle of his chest. I used some of these pictures for a show, an exhibition I did in Bombay called 60-60. When I turned 60, I had 60 images of people that kind of influenced me or affected me. And there were 5 naked torsos, Victor, Amjad. I had Anand Patwardhan, the documentary filmmaker, and the actor, the Kashmiri actor who's now completely bald, Anupam Kher. When he was in college, it's all there. If you it's on my Instagram account, if you guys want to go and look, which is my full name. That's Amjad getting dressed, makeup, his wig, looking over his lines. Saeed Jaffrey, dressed in his very dapper manner. And Amjad relaxing, smoking. Portrait of Amjad, looking very innocent, un-Gabbar-like. Richard Attenborough, Barry John with, I forget her name, she was part of the publicity team. Eleanor, I think. Shabana going over the script, but rather than going over the script, she's looking very lovingly at somebody. Ray and Attenborough. Ray, if you will notice, is clutching his khata. Richard Attenborough at the base of his dressing room. Amjad fooling around. And he was very, my job was also, not job, but I wanted to document all the stuff that was made for the film. And there were times he came and helped, be a prop boy. So to have him as your prop boy was a great, and the other one is the sound engineer. So between the two, I had people who could hold up a background velvet to photograph the crown. And this is some of the other things I did was photograph the various dresses. The lady who's sitting talking to Tom Alter and Ray, who's leaning over, is Mari Seaton, and she wrote the first and probably the most exhaustive kind of biography of Ray, which I don't know if any of you are really interested. I'm told there's a copy in the library. And this is where our fun evenings would happen, and me, the pest, with my flash, photographing everybody to the degree that they're all turning away and looking. That Shama being hugged by Saeed, one of the evenings where, we would just sit and drink whiskey bottles, beer, rum. There's me photographing, again, Bansi Chandragupta emptying out an old inn whiskey bottle with Shama onto his side. And now Bansi's sick of me, so he's hiding behind a sweet box or something like that. This is the hotel that we used to stay in, Kenilworth. It has a nice garden, and some days that we weren't shooting, there would production meetings would still go on. And the gentleman, there's Shama, next to him is Punendu, who is Ray's directorial assistant, and the man with the cigarette is Javed, who is again part of the script team, and he wrote with Shama the script, and that's Shama's niece. I forget her name now. More fooling around. That's Shama. Autograph time. Ray giving autographs. Sanjeev giving autographs. Ray with Saeed, and that's Saeed's wife, Jennifer. That's the sound recordist. I forget his first name, Mr. Singh. Sanjeev Kumar listening to dialogue to see the clarity of dialogue and recording. That's Bansi Da, and he's a wonderful old man who looked after continuity. Continuity, for those who don't know filmmaking or haven't gotten into it, is you shoot sequences in different times, but where a vase or a frame or the kind of clothing, whether the handkerchief was in the left pocket, right pocket, all that has to match through, and that's what's called continuity. Am I correct, professors of film here? For the ad of the movie, the promo, it was decided that both Saeed and Sanjeev Kumar would be dressed normally. And Sanjeev, for some reason during that phase, I don't know what, he would wear this Nepali cap. And so this is and they would play chess and have a dialogue to the audience about the film, which was quite a clever, I thought, way of introducing Shatranj. Just lunch from the famous restaurant, which was very far away in the central Calcutta, Amber. I'm sure the Bengalis here know Amber restaurant quite well, and their biryanis and what have you. And then going out with Ray on location. Halfway through, after the studio shooting, I got fired. The producer said, go home. oh, I'm very unhappy with you, and you know, just leave. So I never made it to Lucknow, which was a very sad moment for me. But then he hired me back, and I'll show you why later. That was a kite flying sequence which was done just in the Maidan in Calcutta. And then in Jaipur, we shot the British Army coming in to take over Awadh. That's Ray outside. And a lot of the sort of sequences which were just the sky and things and silhouettes were shot in the Hotel Clark's Jaipur front lawn. And then once you can the film, it's processed, you've got to edit. And this is Ray, his son, his wife, all travel to Bombay. Familiar picture. That's in the editing suite. That's in sound recording with the great Maestro Mangesh Desai. Look at the dials and the way now you could do things maybe on a cell phone. Bansi Chandragupta shows up for the editing. That's Ray in his hotel. Baudi making tea. Oops. What have I done? I'm gone. Back. Yeah, okay, sorry. That's Attenborough before his press conference in Calcutta. Baudi with a friend. And then there was the premiere, which was dedicated as a fundraiser to the National Association for the Blind. It was a very small at Metro Cinema in Bombay, but a nice little intimate premiere. And all the ladies from the Blind Association. That's Sanjeev Kumar arriving, crowds. Tom Alter and his wife. For those of you who don't know, Tom Alter's parents were missionaries and taught at Woodstock. So Tom pretty much grew up in India, up in the north, and that's why he could speak Hindi quite easily. Sanjeev Kumar meeting Tom Alter's wife. And we have, what's his name now? It's gone out of my head. Next to Sanjeev Kumar on the right, the actor and his wife. Right. Vijanti Mala. That's Aga Saab. Again, Amol Palika, his wife with Aga Saab. And then there's Aga Saab, Sanjeev Kumar and David. Sanjeev Kumar with the ladies. Whoops. Then, there's been other sets that I've been on, but this was a momentous one because Ray had just received the highest award from France. Back in his, this time in color. I'm sorry, the projector or the screen is such that you get too much of red. So all the reds are, it's a red auditorium and you have red room. Mr. Ray's room has turned red. And you can see he's grown much older. I mean, he's graying, he's looking much more frail, he's slower. That's Sandeep now operating camera. So there's been a change. That's the actor Driptiman Chatterjee speaking. And the other Bengali actor is? So, okay, right. So the two Chatterjees. Was this shown, screened? The Ganashatru? No. But there are a few shots that will follow. And you can see that Ray, it wasn't just that Ray worked with the big guys or whatever. Here, is just a small actor who has a few lines, but Ray takes the time and effort to try and coach him, to sort of get him to really do how he wants. And that's what makes a perfectionist, is it's not just, about the Sanjeev Kumars and the Shabana Azmi, but even the small actor. And as you can see, here's his, this is not his main khata, this is another notebook, but as you can see, all the scribbling, the ticking. And then during this period, the French arrive in great number. That's Depardieu, who comes visiting on set, and some of the other well-known French producers. And then this is before Ganashatru, Ray receiving his award from the president, who was in a visit in India and came solely to Calcutta to be able to give this award. These are not my photos, but it's one of the saddest moments for me. And I still choke up, where you have Audrey Hepburn. This is the time when, I don't know how many of you actually saw it live on TV. Ray is sick in bed, and then he's nearly like he's forced to make a statement to the Oscars, which are live. And it's there on YouTube. And that's at his funeral. This is the young man who made all these photos. Thank you very much. Give me just a minute, sorry I forgot. I'll just show you this whole thing of why I got I got kicked out of, if I can pull up the PDF. Oops. So this is 1977, and it's Feb 1577. We've been shooting. I've been asked to go. And then India Today does this spread of my photos. Sorry, it's not, I couldn't find the page. I don't have the magazine, but I found a PDF. So after it ran in India Today, the photos, and these are all color, and of course the property of the producer. He was ever so grateful and took me back. I wasn't very happy at that exclusion, but I was happy to come back. And so this is the on-screen drama, and then there's an off-screen ... So that's basically it, and the rest is history.
Thanks so much, Pablo.
If you have any questions, as I was telling others, that I'm not a great Ray expert. I have worked with him. I've watched him. He's been a great influence. But, if you ask me certain details, I may not be able to give you. But more generally, yes, I'm happy to answer anything.
Yeah, so you got 15 minutes. Shoot. There. You're from Lucknow, Abhiraj. The mic is coming. Mic is coming to you.
Why don't you give the other mic to somebody, that way they can, they can be, two people can be.
Someone out there.
Thanks. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
So what was the hiring process like? Like, did you interview with Mr. Ray himself? And what was your first day like on set, like meeting him, being in his presence for the first time?
I was hired by the producer. So you have to understand that Ray has a captive film unit that's all Bengali. Obviously, because he makes films in Bengali. They're all Calcutta based. And he is forced, I will use the term forced, but he has to make one film a year to keep his crew alive, literally. I mean, if he didn't make a film a year, some of them may starve, or I don't know what they would do. But that was the tightness of the Bengali film unit of Ray. They were dedicated to him. He was dedicated to them. It's interesting to see a lot of the films that Ray made were financed by the government of West Bengal, which, I think is kind of unheard of in terms of films being financed by state governments. But coming back to your question, the producer, who has the same name, family name as your university, Jindal, was the gentleman who hired me. And it was a much closer connection because I knew friends of his. I knew his niece who introduced me. And as it always happens, and you will learn in life, it's the network that you have that eventually allows you to travel. For example, I knew Dhritiman Chatterjee, which you may have seen, the guy with the goatee beard, as an actor of Ray, the color pictures. I knew him very well through, again, he used to work in advertising, knew him through common friends, ended up staying with him in Calcutta. I moved a whole dark room to his apartment in Calcutta during the period that the film was being shot. So a lot of it is processed in his bathroom, things like that. His son was born, he named his son Pablo. So it's coincidental, but what I'm trying to say is that, so the Suresh Jindal hired me, and I was so Suresh Jindal hired the sound recordist, the Sardarji that you saw in the photos, me as the stills photographer, and a few other. The camera rental team was all from Bombay. The Ariflexes and all came from Bombay, because they also came with a blimp, so that this was the first time most of it was shot with live dialogues and no dubbing in the studio, post-production kind of thing. So that's how it is. So I never interviewed with Ray, but I was introduced, and you had to navigate and make friends, not just with the director. The Bengali crew was very proprietary. I mean, this was their territory, their para, as locality you were stepping into, and they were very possessive of Ray, especially the stills photographer, because I was the monkey that came in and was taking some of the gravy away. And I have great regard for the stills man, because he documented Ray over so many years. And with Ray, there were common other links which helped in. I knew Tinu Anand, who was an assistant. There were two assistants, I knew them both. There was Suhasini Mule, who assisted him, and then there was Tinu Anand, and both of them. Tinu, I worked on many of his films with Amitabh Bachchan that he used to direct, Kalia, Shahenshah, all of them I photographed as stills photographer. So those links were already there. And actually, the story is that Suresh Jindal went to Tinu to say that I want to make a film with Ray. Can you introduce me to him? So it's all a very, you can say, incestuous. Tinu Anand's wife is Jalal Aga's sister. Jalal Aga's father was Abbas Aga Saab, who plays a small role. So, all these things. My parents went to college, St. Stephen's, with Saeed Jaffrey. So I knew Saeed from another era and time and whatever. I'm not trying to show off here, but I'm just trying to say that somewhere all these linkages, you don't know, all you people as you grow, who will help who may not help who, out of envy, jealousy, hatred, whatever. So all these things happen. And that's what movies are all about. And that's where in Ray's films you see all these things. It's like in the plays of Shakespeare. You have conspiracy, envy, jealousy, love, hatred. It's the human things.
So, my question was that as you explained that Ray was someone who was actually quite protected in his own studio. How were the people who, did they accept you as the still photographer there, or did they not?
Yeah, I was part of the crew, so they accepted me, and I had to work within restrictions and watch my step. I'm quarter Bengali, so that helps. I know pidgin Bengali, so hotche, gotche, poche is not a problem. And so, I can manage. I was Ritiman's friend who also came on set, and they knew I was staying with him. So all these things matter, You have to, without necessarily shouting it out, you leverage your way through all the assets that you have. That's what you'll have to do in life.
Thank you.
Since you mentioned about this whole Bengaliness and the whole dynamics on the set while the film was being made, I was wondering, Bangsi Chandragupta, who's the art director of the film, is not Bengali as far as I know. So, and you also seem to have shot Bangsida quite a bit during the shoot. So, could you throw some light on it? And I'm particularly interested in his work, in Bangsida's work in Calcutta.
But he's not Bengali. I always assumed he was Bengali.
He is actually, as far as I know, from Rajasthan.
Is it? Okay.
Seems so.
All right.
Though he was very fond of Calcutta and he stayed there and
Yeah,
worked
but
there.
you have so many Marwadis who are nearly Bengali because of, and some of them actually eat fish too.
No, but did you notice any discomfort or any such thing in Bangsida when he was working with Ray or on the set?
No. There was nothing. I mean, it's like cranky old men. You have old friendships and they have disagreements and can, chan, pan, all that sort of stuff. But, hotchena, gotchena, pochena, hobena is the big thing. Na, hobena, won't happen. But at the end of the day, things worked. Things happened.
Yeah.
There were huge fights. I mean, there's always drama. There was between I shouldn't be maybe saying it, but between the producer and the Ray gang, there was a huge,
Tug of war. Thank you.
Suresh writes about all this.
I don't know. I haven't read the book because I fell out with Suresh. And
Again. You fell out with him again.
No, I fell out permanently. It's like full stop. It's not comma, exclamation mark, dash, anything. It's full stop. Some years ago, and that's another side story which I would never get into publicly. But so I haven't read his book. I know for the centenary, he kind of sent some feelers of whether I would collaborate for his book. Or I would, but he has the film stills.
Yeah.
What I have as stills are black and white prints that I had made at that time and then rephotographed them for myself. So the original negatives, everything went to the production house. That's one of the big problems about being a stills photographer. I worked on Gandhi, everything went to the production house. So there's hardly any record that I have. I have some side images and whatever, but you work on hire rather than own your copyright. But then I decided that I wanted to photograph Ray doing other things, his editing, sound, and those are aspects that are less documented about him. That he did all those stuff. Moments in the editing room as he's looking at the rushes and rediscovering things and, the exuberance of his face, gestures, those are things that, always fascinated me.
Puneet.
Hi, my name is Puneet. I'm a final year student at Jindal School of Journalism and Communication. I just wanted to know, as someone who has seen him up close, what was his creative process like for making the entire movie, directing it and storyboarding it? So, yeah.
When you say entire process, as in, if you...
Just the creative thought that went behind and how, because one of my professors was telling me in class that he would just go into his room and 3 months later he would come out with the script and with all everything with this kitab that he was saying,
Yeah,
and
so I
everything was
wouldn't
planned
be
out.
privy to that. But as I try to structure within the presentation, there's an element of deep research. Well, for one, there's a search constantly of what is the story you want to make as a movie. Once I presume you find it, then how do you structure it? How do you break it down into a screenplay? The feasibility of it, whether it's a studio film like Ghanashatru was principally a studio film, or like if you have something like Oshoni Shanket, a lot of it is on location. So then the dynamics are different. And all of this is supposition. I don't know, I can't get into his mind. So I don't know what his compulsion, I don't even know why he made Shatranj, except that he liked the story, this Premchand story, which is a sort of like parallels between the two chess players, the political moment of the time, Wajid Ali Shah.
I think he himself liked to play chess.
Not necessarily. But okay. Okay. But the thing is, again, see, I don't know that facet about him. But I think these humanist elements of love, jealousy, infidelity, power, the taking over of power, the effeminate king or the ruler who danced with a different religion and form. You could say the Ras is a sacred form in a certain way, dressed up as Krishna. So, there are all these things which I can't answer for you as to what his motivations were or how he goes about it, but I try to break down, there's the research phase, then of course there's another phase which is finding the money. If you can't find finance, you can't make a film, because that's going to feed you, the film crew, and eventually maybe the box office will bring you back something. So that's not an area I can help you.
Thank you.
All right. We've actually run right out of time because, Reet, you've got a question, I know. You've got a question. Why don't you ask him while having coffee outside? Because we have a show as well. Those of you who are not going to run away for very important work and wish to watch this, remember that, Ray actually recreated Sholay cast out here. And so you have a lot of Sholay cast. Can you imagine Sholay, a film, and suddenly Shatranj Ke Khiladi? Two completely different films, completely different kind of actors, different stories. And Amjad Khan out here, as he explained, Sanjeev Kumar. So keep that in mind. It's very... Yeah, Amitabh Bachchan, by the way, this film's narration is by Amitabh Bachchan, who always wanted to act in a Ray film, never got a chance. I mean, Ray never called him for a role. So he finally gave voice to the film. Stay back and watch, but please let me do something that is the most important part of any event. So when you watch a film, after the last frame, what do? Do you leave the theater? If you do, please don't in future. Wait for the... So I have to do that. The acknowledgement. I think this is the most important part of any event. And there are a lot of people who I must thank, starting with Pablo, to have agreed to come in a car because he insisted till the last moment he wants to take a train to come out here. That didn't quite happen, but he traveled. Madhulika Little, who was there in the first day as a speaker, NFDC and the National Film Archive of India, they collaborated, shared prints with us. Aurora Films, R.D. Bansal Films, Suresh Jindal, as you've heard just now. The book is in my office. If anyone wants to read it, can stop by. I must also thank my Vice Chancellor, who sends his best wishes, the Registrar, who was here today, the AV team, a big thanks to you, because even on a holiday, they were here when we were screening the films. The transport team, very, very important for logistics. The FMO team, I don't know who is here, but thanks a lot. The JSJC Students' Council, I am told, did a spectacular job. The Executive Office of JSJC, that's Mehjabin and Rahul, thanks so much. Venu, Jay, Sandeep, Ram, Anubhav, Ruchira, all colleagues, your teachers, and I want you to really, if you can, save your applause for this man, my colleague Uttaran Das Gupta, you know, who actually soldiered, to put the event together. Even when we had 3 people in the hall, we still hoped, and because Uttaran had hope in there, and so we want to now make this an annual event with other film directors, but this is the first Satyajit Ray Memorial Lecture, which has been instituted today, and so every year we are going to have a Satyajit Ray Memorial Lecture as well. And thanks the audience, or some of you out here have come every day, so thank you for the support. And others, please make it a habit. This is your auditorium, please make good use of it. And one little thing should be the takeaway is that this wasn't a question-answer session, if you noticed. It was a storytelling session. So try and tell a story. And this is all that I ask of you, that when you leave this place, tell a story. This is what you should learn out here. So please join us for tea and coffee outside, and then we will, 7 o'clock we start Shatranj Ke Khiladi. It is a fantastic film. Please don't miss it.